morning, everybody. We are excited that you're here today for this webinar that is part of a series on dropout prevention for South Carolina school districts. And today's webinar is Dropout Prevention 101. It is an overview of dropout prevention. And my name is Joy Ivester. I'm the director of the Transition Alliance of South Carolina. And our staff provides technical assistance, training, and support to districts across the state. We typically in the past have provided support in the area of secondary transition to districts. Hopefully you've heard a little bit about us in the past. But just a little over a year ago, our team was given the responsibility of supporting districts to improve dropout prevention efforts in the state as well. And it makes great sense. You can't do transition well without keeping youth in school. And if students are not well equipped for transition to adult life, then a diploma is merely a piece of paper. We need both pieces in place, well-equipped students graduating with high school diplomas when at all possible. Your school or district may be lacking dropout prevention efforts, or you may be considering how you can get involved and ensure that students are engaged. And so over the course of the next few weeks, every other week on Thursdays at 11 a.m., we are going to be presenting a series of webinars that review strategies and information, ideas, and resources to support you in beginning or building on this important work in your community. We hope that you'll join us for each one of these sessions and then engage with us to build capacity in your community. All of the resources that we will share today, including the PowerPoint, are available by visiting the Transition Alliance website and clicking on graduation and dropout resources at the top of the page. So we have an hour together this morning and a lot of information to cover in overviewing dropout prevention. So let's get started. During the next 50 minutes, you'll learn why we need dropout prevention efforts in place, what this work should entail, how we're tackling this in South Carolina, and who should be involved in your community, and how you can get started. First, let's talk quickly about why we need to address dropouts. And I'm sure as each of you are looking at this data, you can think of students in your community that you worry about, students who are at risk of dropping out of high school. We're losing far too many students each year, and I think we all know that. This chart shows the most recent data we have from our state. And perhaps to me, as a special educator, the most distressing piece of information here is that each year, approximately 2 times as many students with disabilities drop out of high school than their peers who do not have an IEP. South Carolina also collects graduation data. And just a quick look at 2021, I kept going with my 20s there, demonstrates the tremendous discrepancy in graduation rates between students with and without disabilities. So the graduation rate for all students in 2021, which we also know was in the throes of a pandemic, was 83.3%, which you may think that's above average, but that means that we're losing nearly 20% of our students, so 1 in 5. Now, students with disabilities or students that have an IEP in place, that number nears 50%, so 1 out of every 2 students are not graduating with a high school diploma. You can find your own district's dropout and graduation rate on the South Carolina School Report Card website. Indicator 1 and 2 data, graduation and dropout rates for students who have IEPs can be found on the district LEA profiles on the Department of Education website. And we will have all of those links available for you at the end of the presentation. Mike Stutz is going to kind of go through all of the resources that are available to you, including those data sets. So looking briefly at the data, we also know that nationally the trends are that students who fail to graduate from high school with a diploma struggle in adulthood more often than not. In fact, the U.S. Department of Labor reports that high school dropouts are more likely to earn lower salaries. Graduates earn approximately $7,000 more per year than non-graduates. They also have difficulty finding employment. And if you think about most applications, they ask, do you have your high school diploma? And that can be a major barrier for a lot of job seekers. They also engage in criminal activity more often than students that graduate with a high school diploma and spend more time incarcerated. Students that do not graduate with a high school diploma often have more poor health than their contemporaries that have high school diplomas, are more likely to become single mothers and live in poverty and or require government assistance. So with that alone, you can see the importance of getting our students across the finish line. So what is our state doing about this? This work has been going on for a number of years. CAST is partnering with the Office of Student Intervention Services and the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education Services to ramp up our support of school districts and communities and retaining students and getting them across the finish line. But we have some support in that there is a regulation in place that requires schools and school districts to address at-risk students. This South Carolina regulation provides districts with a definition of at-risk students. These students are at risk of dropping out of school and need temporary or ongoing intervention in order to graduate. And of course, this would include our students who have an IEP and facilities that have been diagnosed. So based on this regulation, each high school should evaluate their own dropout prevention models, initiatives, or programs using the criteria described here. As CAST has worked with a number of districts and schools in the past, we have found that schools are doing a lot of great things, and you probably can reflect as we go through this hour on some of the wonderful things that you're already doing to promote retention of students and get them through the graduation process. It's important to ensure that these efforts are well orchestrated, that everyone is on board, and that the initiatives and interventions are being implemented with fidelity and being monitored across the year to ensure that they're effective. And some of these requirements help to ensure those pieces are in place. And that would include that you report the number of at-risk students identified, any specific risk factors to ensure that there's not a discrepancy in the number of students that are struggling. The extent of parental involvement, and as you'll find out later, parental involvement and parent engagement is a strong indicator of future success in graduation. And we know too that in transition, that parent engagement is super important in finding success long-term for adults that have gone through the transition process. So parent involvement in the dropout prevention efforts is critical. The number of students served, and then there's a formative assessment of strengths and weaknesses of the model, initiative, or program in place, and that we're doing a qualitative assessment of the desired outcomes to ensure that our work is effective. So by addressing a targeted population, the school can review the following data points to ensure the student performance is in place. Examples are listed below, such as decreased percentages of truancy, absenteeism, discipline rates, and retention rates, along with increases in the students' GPA and the percentage of students who are on grade level and who graduate on time. School districts can also consider using an early warning system, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that might look like in a bit for ensuring that we capture the students who are at risk and have well-aligned resources and interventions in place to support those students. As special educators, we know that sometimes our expertise can be overlooked. And as you saw in the earlier slide, that students with disabilities make up a large portion of students that are dropping out of school and not graduating with a high school diploma. So it's important to ask your district and building administrators what they're doing to address the requirements of this regulation if you don't already know. And get involved. Ensure you're at the table to represent special education and ensure that our students are being accounted for and supported through this effort in a way that makes sense for them. So in a few minutes, we're going to talk about some strategies and resources that can help you in engaging with this work. Fortunately, there are a number of resources out there that can help us with this work. The National Dropout Prevention Center has been working for decades to identify research-based practices in the area of dropout prevention and also research-based practices in the area of dropout prevention specifically for students with disabilities. They share those resources via training. They have a wonderful website that we've shared here at the bottom of the page and will be on the resources that we share with you. They provide trainings and trainings, resources, technical assistance, and so forth. And we're actually working with the Office of Student Intervention Services with the hope of bringing in the National Dropout Prevention Center to do a larger scale effort to support. So we should have more news on that within the coming month. But access their website is wonderful. They do divide dropout prevention strategies that have been determined through research to be effective into 4 main categories. And we're going to talk through each one of those in a little bit more detail, but they are foundational strategies, basic core strategies, early interventions, and managing and improving instruction. So on the next slide, we're going to go through each one of those one by one. So the first category, which is foundational strategies, include systemic interventions and strategies that promote retention. So I kind of think of this as policy and administration. They ensure that there is a well-developed plan, policies, and procedures in place to support retention. And it's critical that all parties from the district level to the building level are aware of and engaged in supporting students to graduate. So also, again, ensuring from the special education end that we are at the table to ensure that we are able to provide that perspective on supporting the unique needs of our students as well. We also know that communities are a critical partner in promoting graduation. When communities value education, when expectations are high and supports are in place across schools and communities, students succeed. Safe learning environments, which we know has been a major issue in our country. It fosters a secure and nurturing environment that allows students to focus on education and assist in promoting positive social attitudes and interpersonal skills across the school for all students. So the second category that the National Dropout Prevention Center refers to with regard to evidence-based practices is early interventions. And when we think of dropout prevention, and even when we started this work, we started with those early warning systems we're going to talk about in a minute. We think about high school. How can we get them across that high school diploma finish line? But the path to success starts early when we lay a strong foundation in those early years, engaging families in the partnership and value of educational attainment and providing strong early educational foundations. We set our students up for success in the long term. In fact, early literacy and explicit literacy instruction are both research-supported characteristics and practices leading to positive long-term educational outcomes, including graduation. we're really excited about a new partnership that hopefully you're beginning to hear about. The Office of Special Education Services at the Department of Education is now funding 4 technical assistance centers in special education, and they are TASC, or the Transition Alliance of South Carolina, BASC, which is the Behavior Alliance of South Carolina, located at Clemson, the ASC, or the Academic Alliance, which is located at USC, and the it's South Carolina Partners for Inclusion, which is Early Childhood Intervention Support, which is also located at USC. And those 4 TA centers make up South Carolina teams. And we will be supporting districts across the state in a collective way in the coming years. One thing that benefits us in this is TASC is not an expert in early intervention or explicit literacy instruction. So we're really excited to partner with SIPI in working on dropout prevention efforts that we know are important across the student lifespan. ASK can also help us with early intervention, and BASK with behavior. So I think it's going to be a really nice partnership for us when we're attacking dropout prevention as a state. And you'll see too, if you've looked at our coming webinars, that our partners from South Carolina teams or those TA centers are also going to be providing some of our webinars in the coming weeks and months. So that's an exciting piece. But going back to early intervention, one of the things that always comes to my mind when I think about early intervention and dropout prevention is the river parable, or the river and the rescuer. And I heard this a long time ago, and it's just one of those things that stuck with me. But if you haven't heard it, it goes like this. Once upon a time, there's a small village on the edge of a river. And one day, one of the villagers noticed that there was a baby floating down the river. And she quickly jumped in and saved the baby from drowning. She went back to the river the next day and saw 2 babies in the river. And she called for help, and both babies were rescued from the swift waters of the river. The following day, she was at the river again, and 4 babies were caught in the current of the river. And then 8, and then more, and then still more. The villagers quickly organized themselves, setting up watchtowers, training teams of swimmers who could resist the swift waters and rescue all the babies. Several days passed until the villagers noticed a young man running northward along the bank, and they shouted, "Where are you going? We need you to help with this rescue." And he responded, "I'm going upstream to stop these children from falling in the river." And so that is what we are trying to do by looking at K through 12 dropout prevention. Yet, there are a number of strategies that can be employed during the middle and high school years to promote graduation. Some of these, again, your school may already be offering. And what we found, and I can't say more often than not, every time we've gone into a school system, they are doing wonderful things already, such as mentoring and tutoring and at-risk students. It may just, again, not be as organized into a concerted school-wide effort. But mentoring and tutoring and our evidence-based practices in promoting graduation and dropout prevention, service learning opportunities, alternative schooling for students who are at risk of dropping out of school, and other after or out of school opportunities are all part of those basic core strategies. If you have them in place already, consider how engaged students with IEPs are in those programs. Are they well organized? Are they monitored and adjusted to ensure that the intended outcomes are achieved? Are they aligned with students who need those specific programs based on their at-risk areas? And is this, when thinking about this is where a strong graduation team can come into play as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about those graduation teams their importance, and how we can help you get those started as well in a bit. So finally, the area of managing and improving instruction includes strong professional development to ensure staff are well equipped and on board, making sure that everyone from the janitors in the school who have been shown to be effective dropout prevention personnel, to your guidance counselors, to building administrators, teachers, assistants, coaches, are all on board and understand what is happening, what is going on, are trained to support students, and it's a collective effort. Active learning is another key dropout prevention strategy, educational technology, and individualized instruction for youth. And I think as special educators, we are well aware of the importance of that, those pieces too. In addition, quality work study opportunities like career and technical education and school to work programs promote retention for students who are interested in pursuing career development activities. So we talked a little bit about the river and the rescuer earlier. However, we have to do our best to save students who are in the river now. Students that are in middle high school and are at risk for dropping out of high school. And the first step in it solving any problem is identifying your problem. So enter the early warning system that we discussed earlier. Simply put, an early warning system is a system that uses readily available data to identify students who exhibit behavior or academic performance that puts them at risk of dropping out of school. Early warning systems are created to identify at-risk students and related interventions to improve graduation outcomes for students. So the data that is most often used for dropout prevention, early warning system efforts is what we refer to as ABC data. And they are powerful predictors of which students are most likely to drop out of high school. Those include attendance, including truancy and chronic absenteeism, discipline data, including suspensions and expulsions, and course completion. Course performance in the ninth grade has been shown to correlate strongly with high school graduation. We know that we lose a lot of our students in ninth grade, and the majority of students are lost in the 9th and 10th grade. So a district team would ideally identify students who are struggling in one or more of these areas, and then identify interventions to rectify the issues. So in talking with some of our experts, the Behavior Alliance of South Carolina, they have said, we really need to start these early warning systems in middle school before students get to high school. And I think that that is a valid point that needs consideration as well. It's definitely not rocket science. And looking at this list of potential early warning system interventions, you're probably already pretty familiar with and using some of these strategies. However, some of the interventions that could be used for school districts, and we know that these should be individualized to not just the district, but also to the school and the unique needs of the students within that school building. But some of those interventions might include a meeting of teachers and administrators, a parent meeting, development of a student level intervention plan, referral to student support teams, assignment to credit recovery courses, mandatory tutoring, academic support courses, social service referrals, assignment to an adult mentor, and assignment to a case manager. And the districts that we've been working with for the past year or so utilize a variety of these based on their unique structure and needs within their school system. And of course, the intervention would be matched to the student needs or gaps. So if you have a student who is not attending school, that might be matched with a meeting with parents or meeting with parents, where if you have a student who is failing Algebra 1, they might be assigned to academic support courses or mandatory tutoring. So again, the Transition Alliance is working with the Office of Student Intervention Services and the Office of Special Education Services at the South Carolina Department of Education to support districts and schools that are working to improve these graduation outcomes for youth with disabilities. In setting up our system of support, we initially go in and work with districts to develop that graduation team at the school or building level. And this is the typical process that we use to assist the teams in initiating their work. So the team would form, identify their key partners, and have an initial meeting, and then look at their data. And using that data, they would develop that early warning system tool, which would kind of be a strategic plan for development and implementation of that strategic plan. And then they would use the following months to implement and then monitor the effectiveness of the system. And that would just be that first part, the end, not the rescuer, but not the going down the stream to find out why all these students are falling in the river, but trying to catch them before they drop out of high school once they're in middle or high school. And TAS maintains, I know Mike Stutz is going to come on in a little bit and share resources, but TAS maintains a great resource that is a graduation team guide that includes samples of meeting agendas, of sample team membership, how to form a team. We have data tools that allow districts to input and track that ABC data, and a strategic planning process that we work with teams to develop these components. So we are right there with you every step of the way in developing and implementing this. Our framework of support is built to ensure that we can support districts across the state, whether or not districts have been identified as needing support by the South Carolina Department of Education. We do work more intensively with districts that have been identified by the Office of Special Education Services to receive support in the area of graduation and dropout prevention, those indicators 1 and 2. However, there is a lot of support available for all districts that are invested in partnering on this work. But with those Tier 3 districts, we provide support in establishing those graduation teams and developing and implementing those early warning systems. Tier 2 is moderate technical assistance, and it's individualized. So if you are a district that is not part of that needs assistance determination by the Office of Special Education Services, but would like to partner with TAS to receive support with regard to dropout prevention, you would go on our website and click on the moderate technical assistance application. It's very short, doesn't require a lot of time. You can do it in a couple of minutes. And we would meet with you to determine what your needs are and what your status is and move forward from there with the idea that we would meet you where you are. We do have kind of a process that we go through, but we do know that each district, each school has their own unique strengths, needs, status as far as other efforts, and we are here to meet you where you are and provide support with that in mind. We just ensure that that all of the work that we do to support you has evidence behind it, has a research base, and that it is compliant as well. With that moderate TA, you can receive training, technical assistance, referral, coaching, and support So one of our favorite things to do is to connect districts with other districts that are doing wonderful work. We recognize districts as being the true experts in the state, and that we serve as a conduit for ensuring that there's a connection between local experts and those who need the support. We also have a tier 1 that we have identified as universal technical assistance, and that is broader based, not individualized support, and could include interagency team development, strategic planning, statewide training, like today, communities of practice, and web-based resources such as the task app that Mike is going to share with you in just a little bit as well. So the communities of practice have been instrumental in sharing work across communities that are tackling this work. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for districts to come together, share resources, ask questions of one another and experts, they're experts, but other state level experts and local level experts as well, and to learn more about practices. It's been very helpful, I think, for districts. We also have a web-based resource where districts can share things that they have found or created that have been useful for them in tackling this work. So this past year, TASK began working with 12 districts to develop graduation teams and early warning systems. And based on what we know, we expect for that number to expand exponentially in the coming year. Those teams are always invited to those communities of practice. And so the intensive OSIS identified districts would be invited to come to those communities of practice, but also districts that have elected to participate and not been mandated necessarily to participate would be a part of those communities of practice as well. We expect for that number to grow. We would love to have you join our work. And again, our districts work independently to meet their own goals. And I say independently, some do meet independently, and then we just check in every once in a while. Some districts we do attend every meeting and provide, very close support. It just depends on your preferences and your needs of the district. But we also provide mechanisms and opportunities, again, as I said earlier, for districts to share network across those communities. So I think that you probably heard me saying this, but I do think one of the most important things we do is connect those communities and districts with one another. Union County began this work in dropout prevention a little over a year ago, and have made tremendous strides in this work. And I wanted to share this video with you that kind of reviews their work and how they tackled it and some of the strides that they have made in that time.
Hey, I'm Elizabeth Ireton. I'm coordinator of special services in Union County Schools.
And I'm Jayla Galt. I'm a special education teacher at Union County High School.
And we are part of our graduation dropout prevention team here in Union County. We've been working on this effort for a little over a year now. It really started last school year with an overall school focus on our graduation rate, which was not very good. And about midway through the year, we were contacted by the Transition Alliance of South Carolina, and they reached out to basically say, hey, we're here to help and support your special populations and graduation rate. And so we jumped on board. We figured if our overall graduation rate was low, that probably our rate of students in special education was probably low as well. And so we started to take a look at the data. And what we found is that We did have a problem with that group of students not making it in 4 years to graduation, so we started meeting twice a month, and we met with the Transition Alliance of South Carolina, and we formed our team, and we came up with a plan. We put a plan in place, an early warning system to hopefully increase our graduation rate of students with disabilities. That included a summer bridge program for our ninth graders, some mentoring along the way, some service learning, and then now it involves what you see behind us here. This is our graduation board. We are standing in what we call our war room, and so the next step for us is to put this board into place. We just got this a couple of weeks ago, and so here in another week or two, we have a group of teachers each period, each block, that will come together, and we will start to track individual student data. We're going to track students with IEPs as well as students who are at risk of not graduating on time in 4 years. And so their names will go up here, and our data teams will meet once a month, and we will track those students with attendance, behavior, discipline, and course completion. Those are the ABCDs. I think I said those out of order, but those are the things that we will be tracking with those students. And of course, if we see that the students are running into problems, then we will target some interventions specifically for those students. So hopefully we'll get these kiddos to graduation on time. Hey, I'm Elizabeth Iyer.
Super. So thanks, Leah is running all of this for us in the background. And you heard Elizabeth say D2, and so that's progress towards receiving a diploma, and that's one of their pieces that they track in their early warning system. And so you can see that it's individualized. That's one thing that their team determined that they wanted to look at is that progress, kind of monitoring the students and how they're tracking towards that. So in looking at all of this information, how can it help you? And what are some potential steps? Find out, does your district or school have a dropout prevention initiative? And if they do, then make sure that special populations is represented on that team. Your perspective, your expertise is invaluable to that team. If you don't have a dropout prevention initiative at the high school level or at the middle school level or at the district level, recruit your potential graduation team members and get them to the next webinar in this training series. And we will have this recorded and posted so that they can catch up if they did not attend today. And if you don't and want to build a graduation team, throughout this webinar series, we're going to be talking to you about how you can develop that and supporting you in the end to do that. If you have questions, want support, want to go ahead and jump off and get started, email us at transition@usdmed.sc.edu. So our team has collected some valuable resources that we think will be helpful to you in this work. In addition to the previously and often mentioned National Dropout Prevention Center resources, which are invaluable, there are a number of data resources provided by the South Carolina Department of Education that will help you in identifying your data. The accountability manual was released recently, outdated in March 2023. The South Carolina School Report Card link is important. The LEA district profiles for those indicator data and district progress towards meeting those goals or targets. policies and procedures for the collection of school dropout data, and PowerSchool resources. PowerSchool is a critical component of collecting information related to student progress, related to grades and attendance and suspensions, expulsions, so forth. Your data clerk at your high school, your guidance counselors are key pieces to data as well. And South Carolina Ready, that website provides access to test scores as well. So Task has worked hard, and Mike Stutz, who will be sharing in a little bit, to curate resources specific to this work. You can visit the Task website to learn more about dropout prevention, our services, and how we can support you in your goal. I know that Mike has been working hard to build out what we term the Task app as well, which is a resource on or a curated set of resources on transition and dropout prevention. I don't know, Mike, if you want to share a little bit about that and what that looks like at this point.
Sure. Thanks, Troy. And hello, everybody. Yeah, I put it in the chat feature on Zoom earlier in the presentation, but if you go to the Task app, it's available on your desktop computer or on a smart device. And if you click on the graduation tab, it will have it already has today's PowerPoint presentation, but also will have a recording of today's presentation, as well as we've gathered up all of the graduation and dropout prevention resources that we could find, either that are provided by the state or by other agencies or provided by ourselves, and have put it all into one place for the school districts that we work with. So in addition to the dropout and prevention resources that are located on the app, we also, and our bread and butter has been transition over the last, for all of our existence. So, there's probably 300 to 400 resources specifically designed or specific to transition. And so we invite you to take a look at the app. And that's really the one-stop shop for any transition or dropout prevention resources that we have in our possession.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we also want to thank the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education Services and Office of Student Intervention Services and Aveen Colvin for their support. We are financially supported by the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education Services. Task is one, again, of 4 technical assistance centers that make up the South Carolina Teams Network. South Carolina Partners for Inclusion, or SCIPI, the Behavior Alliance of South Carolina, and the Academic Alliance of South Carolina all provide support in the area of special education. So join us for the next webinars in this series. The next one will be 2 weeks from now on Thursday to hear from those partners who specialize in behavior intervention and support and academic support for dropout prevention. And please check out our website for more information and resources.